Informal, we have one agenda item or study session item that we'll call the study session to order at 7:01 p.m. And the topic, the published topic is Commission and Committee Meeting Broadcasts. And the lead in email was for the agenda item this was leading towards is getting a bunch of commission committee meetings to mandatory television broadcasts. Since Mr. Budny initiated that legislation, I'll let you pick it up, Jim. You can start the conversation and let's see what the temperature of the board is on this topic.
All right, thanks, Brian. Yeah, this is kind of something that started over a year ago. A year ago, October, we started talking about this. We had a study session on it. Some of the, actually, I think Chief Murdoch and Commissioner Chair Paul Anderson had requested that they take it back to their commissions. And we said, fine. And we did not hear from them and we did not go back to them. So it just kind of dropped off the face. And this is just something that I thought could be taken care of, that needs to be looked at. Those two commissions are, those two departments are very important to this island. And the thinking was that they should have their meetings on TV so that the people of Grosse Ile can see what's happening with two important departments. We did receive today a couple of emails from the fire, one from fire, one from police. I got them late. I looked them over quickly. And anybody that knows me knows I don't like to get things right before a meeting. That's not the proper time in my head. I need to have time to look it over and study it. However, in looking it over, I really didn't see anything new in those emails that we hadn't heard before. But the purpose of this is to really, not for the board so much, but for the commissions to state their views on it and give them a chance to have their say. So I don't know, Paul, I see you up there. So I'll start with you, if you don't mind, and tell us what your thoughts are on this. Paul Anderson.
Make sure you unmute, Paul.
Unmute, Paul.
Yeah, how about now?
Yeah, good.
Better.
I couldn't find where the thing was because some other window popped up on my screen. I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. All right. Yeah, I'll start off, and Russell, Audrey, and myself talk today, and I'll start off and do the police, and then he'll review the fire. I sent out, and I apologize, we weren't told a deadline to have something to Brian or whatever. We would have had that. I've only been on the commission 32 years, so I'm still learning.
We all are.
But anyway, the current practice of holding the police and fire commission meetings at the public safety building, it's been in place since the building opened. I'm not sure beyond that, but I know since the building opened, it's been in place, and we feel the practice should be continued, and they should not be moved to the Township Hall to allow the meetings to be televised. This has been the unanimous position of the Police Commission and the Fire Commission and the respective command staffs for the past 30 years. And they've included in the past 30 years, Joe Persorelli, Mike Jarecki, Carl Bloetscher, myself, and Mark. And so I assume their opinions in this matter haven't changed, but we haven't polled anybody. So first and foremost, all of the meetings held at public safety buildings have always and will continue to be open to the public. There's no violation absolutely to the, and I don't know why I lost your faces. Can you all still hear me?
Yes, like,
Yep.
I just can't see you. But anyways, there should never be an issue of transparency or violation of the Open Meetings Act in continuing our current practice. We don't violate it now. If we continue, we won't be violating it. There's no restriction for public access. All citizens have been invited and welcome. The agendas for both the police and fire commission are always posted per the township administration procedure. Holding the meetings in the public safety building have a lot of advantages. It's not just a matter of convenience, and it can even be a matter of life and safety as well. Frequently during our meetings, emergency calls are received at dispatch, which require immediate response from both the fire and or police department personnel, and being on site, they immediately can respond and get out to the call. Being on site allows close proximity to records and reports. Frequently in a meeting, we'll say, well, what was the past thing on that? And being that close, someone can walk down and get that paper without actually delaying or interrupting our meetings. It also allows officers to sit in whenever they are available, and we get, very good participation in that regard. The input from the meetings and members of the department is valuable, and much open dialogue ensues, which improves the relations within the department and with the township. This communication also eliminates escalation of many disputes and eliminates many grievances. Televising could stifle this valuable, frank, and open dialogue and the inclusiveness it provides from the organization. And then many sensitive labor relations and other internal matters are frequently discussed at these meetings, including potential grievances and contract issues. So currently the following issues are routinely discussed at the police commission meetings that should not be televised. Many sensitive police tactical and strategic issues are discussed, developed, and or revised at the police commission meetings. It wouldn't be prudent to broadcast this information to the very elements of the community that these tactics and strategies are directed at. Special detail status such as Drano, DARE, DEA operations are also discussed openly. Many of these details wouldn't be appropriate to be televised, including undercover personnel, tactics, and strategies. The monthly report reviews often include sensitive personal details of residents that residents would not want to have broadcast routinely to the community at large. They expect discretion and a certain element of privacy. And it must be emphasized, excuse me here, that the monthly report summaries don't represent final dispositions or adjudication of issues reported. So it's not proper to broadcast incomplete status of names or details, which people can take away thinking that what was reported there was the final status, and it would be inaccurate. At some point during general discussions of participants being familiar to the department, which is a phrase we use, it's not always adequate. Sometimes we got to talk about names to be sure of what we're doing and the department's responding correctly or following the best course of action. But it's not appropriate to allow the names to be broadcast to the community at large again in this context. And examples of the types of issues that are routinely discussed at as part of the monthly reports and the Detective Bureau and Youth reports are listed below. I'll review them here in a second. But it must be pointed out that this in no way is all inclusive of the issues that we routinely address in our meetings. we've run into suicides and attempted suicide, family disputes of all flavors, lewd behavior issues, threats and domestic disputes, spousal abuse, child abuse, runaways, drug and alcohol abuse, and delinquency. Those are items that are part of the police business, and they're discussed again on a regular basis. So just to summarize, televising the police commission meetings would be detrimental for all the above reasons and would require changes to how the commission and the department have operated for over 30 years. It would likely necessitate additional study sessions or closed executive meetings to allow the department and commission to maintain the current level of service to the community that has resulted in the numerous safest community awards that we've achieved. And the community expects this level of service to continue, and we feel that the best way is to allow us to do this the way we've been doing it. And it's not just saying, well, we've always done it this way, so god dang it, we don't want to do anything to change it. It's because it's turned out to be the best, and the results are there. And, I think that, the brief summary of all the reasons why it's worked so well should allow us to continue to operate the way we have. So that's from the police side. And I think, Rusty, you're there?
Yes. What I'd like to do, am I coming through?
You're loud and clear, Russ.
Thank you. I'd like to expand upon what Paul said. Excuse me. My job as chief is to protect the citizens of the island. A lot of the calls that we go on are disheartening in nature. It's someone at their worst moment. I can see publicizing rec commission meetings or the bike path committee meetings or any of the other meetings. But with us in the fire department, we deal with some pretty disturbing rescues and incidences. I do value the opinion of my fire commission. I have the utmost respect for them. And we will talk about calls in the regard that if we had this piece of equipment, it might have helped save the life of a person we were trying to extract from a car, or all kinds of different issues that we are tasked with handling. Our job on the fire department has grown and grown and grown from the beginning over the years, from fighting fires to doing rescues to water rescues to what's next on the board, I don't know. But the nature of our business is different from that of the recreation or bike paths or any of the others that go out and their meetings are open and videoed. Ours are always open to the public. We do discuss suicides, overdoses, trends in overdoses, where I will let my commission know, hey, I've dealt with a couple of some serious overdoses. There's some new stuff hitting the streets, and we're dealing with it here on the island. It was suggested to me, well, you could talk about those things, but don't give the address. Well, if I go to an overdose, let's say on Burning Bush, and the neighbors across the street, and we talk about it in a meeting and it's publicized, it's not going to take them very long to figure out where that call came from. In order to protect the privacy of the public, I believe it's best that we not put these out there. If somebody truly wanted to come and sit through a meeting, they could. But I don't think it's a good thing to publicize anyone's rescue, no matter what that rescue is. Everyone's call to the fire department is a private matter that I'm sure that they don't want discussed in the public. At the same time, what we deal with as firemen and as the officer staff, it's hard on us sometimes. And we do need somebody to talk to. And it's good that we have our commission to talk to. There's some very intelligent men on my commission, and I value their opinion. And I will bring up certain things. We don't talk names, but their opinions mean a lot. And a lot of times they've come up with some great ideas that have helped us tremendously for future rescues. We always want to be the best. And my job is to do the best, give the best of this township to its citizens and protect their privacy. For those reasons, I believe we are best not to publicize these meetings.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, sir.
Jim Nelson wants to add one thing. Could we move the meeting date for the fire commission to earlier in the evening and not have it at noon or 1 o'clock on a weekday when people probably can't go to it?
The reason why we have it at 1 o'clock, like I was saying earlier, was some of my commissioners are getting a little older. If we have our meetings at 7 o'clock at night, it's dark. A lot of times during the winter, it's storming, it's snowing. It's difficult for them to get out and drive during those conditions to come to the meeting. A few guys were having a hard time driving at night, some of my commissioners. And I believe that's why Duncan moved it to 1 o'clock in the afternoon to make it more convenient for them. Now in summertime, when it's broad daylight till 10 o'clock, I don't see an issue with that at all. But I would say through the winter months, I would feel better just allowing them to drive during the day. I think it's easier on them. And I don't want to lose them as commissioners, even though they're having a little harder time seeing at night. Like I said, they've got some brilliant ideas and I really value their input. I'm trying to, I really want to keep them on my commission. They're wonderful men, just very wonderful. And I treasure the advice they give me. I'm trying to accommodate them. So summer, spring,
Carol, can you go ahead? Can Carol Bloetscher comment on that?
Can I add something there? Can I add something to that, Russ?
Yes, please, Tom.
Additionally, one of the reasons that Duncan did make the decision to change it to the afternoon is at least three of the members of the commission were fully employed, and their work in a lot of cases took them out of town. It was far more convenient to make an afternoon meeting than it was, again, coming in someplace across the state or even out of town to try to be there. So it was in general, it was just more convenient to do it at 1 o'clock on a whatever particular day it was, Thursday, as opposed to doing it in the evenings. And again, it had a lot to do with just being full-time employed, doing a lot of traveling, and we just scheduled accordingly. And if we had to change, we would make that change. But that was another one of the reasons. It's not by any means meant to limit access to a meeting to the public in general. In fact, we even had a few residents come into a fire meeting. Not very often, but it has taken place.
Carl Bloetscher, did you have a comment you wanted to add? Once you unmute.
The township is subject to all of the laws of the state of Michigan, and that includes both the spirit and intent of the Open Meetings Act. I appreciate that the spirit is that we should be accessible and have an ability for the community to see what their local government does. I have been on the police commission for 32 years, and I share the sentiments that Mr. Anderson has regarding accessibility to records, to emergency personnel being able to respond timely from the building, as well as the participation of the various officers. However, this is 2020, and televising these meetings, I would like to see done on at least a temporary experimental basis. I understand the argument, I get it. But in 32 years, I can say that I have not seen a single incident where deleting someone's names and just giving us background on a specific incident has been something that has not been tried. And in fact, if we are talking about things in the meeting when nobody is present, I sit and look at those taxpayers, the elderly in particular, that are paying $5 or $10 or $15 or $20,000 a year in property taxes that we routinely ask them to pay. And the community has been very, very supportive, to the tune of between 73 and 75% on renewals for police, slightly higher for fire. But how do I tell that homeowner that is elderly and perhaps confined to their home because of COVID or because of physical considerations to come out in the middle of January or February, get in their vehicle and make that drive to the public safety building where they can be heard, when we have an ability to do this by television? And there is nothing that I see that prevents us from having the discussion in a camera that we would have in person. Now, if the community elects not to come to a meeting, that's their decision. If the community, however, understands what the police department in particular is about and the considerations and the care, if there are matters that are necessarily private, like a grievance hearing, if somebody has been disciplined, they have the right under the Open Meetings Act to proceed to a closed session. I spoke to a commissioner a number of years ago who indicated that they did not like to have some things broadcast because it was uncomfortable. It made people feel that their privacy was being invaded. Well, we don't have to mention names. I don't have to talk about that drug overdose at Jim Budney's house. I don't have to talk about any of the alcohol parties that maybe Dale Ream is having down in Monroe. The important thing isn't the names. It's how we address the issues. And for me, a very big consideration is that the state of Michigan, like it or not, public policy and statute is that we have township government that is open and available for the citizenry. And if we can't say something at a meeting because it is a matter of an open meetings exception, then we shouldn't worry about saying it at a public televised session. You don't have to mention names. You don't have to go into the quote gory details with a suicide, with a homicide. I have seen those for the last 32 years, and I don't think that adding Jim Nelson's name, address is appropriate, and I don't think that it's necessarily beneficial to the public. I feel the same way about anything that happens with a wild party that Ted Van Oss might have. It's not about public opprobrium. It is about access to the meetings that we have and the information that is there. If there is a Drano, which we no longer have much of an issue with, but let's say a
Doesn't exist anymore.
we don't have to do that in public. That's something that you can talk about and let the chief manage. let the chief make a recommendation, give us a broad overview, and tell us what he wants to do. But he doesn't have to get into the gory details about how he was involved in a Drano arrest 20 years ago or a DEA arrest 10 minutes ago. The public has a right of access. And I don't think there's nothing that, at least on a trial basis, that we can't sit down and say, maybe we do this a little bit differently. Maybe the public, and maybe we don't need to know the details of every kind of warrant arrest, about what happened to John Doe or Jane Smith during their DUI. I don't think those are appropriate, whether it's at a meeting where nobody attends, where we have minutes that are to be taken, or whether it is a meeting that's televised. If you're not comfortable with it, then discomfort is not a reason not to televise. It's a reason to assess what can and should we do differently. The Open Meetings Act, in the spirit of the statute, and what the legislature has passed, for better or for worse, is something that we have to live with. But to tell someone that we cannot go ahead and give you access to police, public safety, because we're uncomfortable with it, not an exception. And we don't frankly need to know the details of every operation that is going on. I think that Chief Warnick, Deputy Chief Harden, Lieutenant Pelland have an ability to give us background information without needing our micromanaging the jobs that they want to do. I would like to try this, even if for a limited basis. I would recommend that we take a look at it for 3 months. I know that there is a good reason for all of the liaisons and all of the chairs to have an idea what the Open Meetings Act is all about, what you can do and what you can't do. And I think it's time for us to do that. I do not see how we can continue with the spirit of the law in the intent of the legislature by just going in and having a regular meeting, which is good enough for some people to attend, but it's not good enough to broadcast. It's an all or nothing thing for me. If we're going to have a closed meeting, let's have a closed meeting or part of a closed meeting. But let's not simply sit back and say, well, geez, we had one person come to the meeting last month, so now we can talk about anything and everything we want this month. I don't think that comports with the statute. And frankly, I think we as government should be better than that. That's all I have to say.
Let me move things
I
along
think
here.
if I could respond real quick, and I know Scott, I think, wants to, but remember, I mean, we've been televising, like it or not, for the last 3 or 4 months because of the COVID deal, and we're on Zoom. And from the sounds, we'll probably be on Zoom till, you know, for a couple more months at least, probably 2, 3, 4. So it's not it's kind of a moot point right now, but going forward, it's something we need to resolve. I'm sorry, Scott.
So I hear Carl and what he's saying, and I don't agree with what Mr. Bloetscher is saying. And there's a number of concerns that I have if we televise these meetings. One is the legality for exposure to the township. If something is said at these meetings that is maybe HIPAA related, or something has to do with the juvenile, where there's juvenile protection issues, or maybe a criminal sexual conduct issue, we have victims that are protected under the law from their identity, and we're talking about just in generalization without discussing their names and addresses. The problem is that if those are brought up, this is a small island. It's not hard to figure out who those people are through neighbors and things of that matter. So, you know, we have to be very careful when we're talking about televising these two commissions. With the fire, they have HIPAA related issues. With police, we have HIPAA and juvenile and criminal sexual conduct victims that we have to be conscious of. If we don't do that, then this township becomes susceptible to more lawsuits. Also going forward, maybe we say something that's out of context and quote unquote, we are police commissioners. Well, there's nothing stopping anybody from recording these without our knowledge. When you're sitting on on a television, we don't see these people watching it. So there's nothing stopping somebody from recording it. And then me as a defense attorney who goes in and I can use that as evidence. It's recorded. Oh, your police commissioner said this. And this is what they said in the meeting. Well, the problem is now tell the court that what we were talking about was just a generalization about that case. And that was not the official report. We were just talking generalizations. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing stopping anybody from recording that. When we have Zoom and we have somebody sitting there, you can see the person who are engaged, or we know who the people are engaged at that time. And if there are issues when they record and they don't disclose that they're recording, because when you come to the open meeting, you're supposed to disclose that you're recording, then everybody knows they're being recorded and we can address the issues of whatever they may be at that time. But you know, I really asked the township here to really be cautious for the legalities of these two commissions, because there are much more of a greater risk with these two than any of the other commissions that I know of.
Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's always a concern for litigation. Regardless, this is a broad sweep. Looking at the legislation that's proposed, action item number 1, broad sweep to expand beyond the Board of Trustees. We're going to the Planning Commission, Commerce Park, Public Services, Police, Zoning Board, Fire, and Community Rec. And 4 of us, if we were to vote on it tonight, 4 of us are going to be heaping something on 4 new members who are taken over in 11 days. I would like to go a little more cautiously, let the new board work with its new liaisons and new commissions and decide, and on a I don't want to say a trial basis, but let's prioritize, because there's going to be additional costs to this also, costs and scheduling concerns. And let them start prioritizing what needs to be televised once we get off of Zoom, what we need to televise, what we need to put on Gross Heel TV, and set up a program, look at the public acceptance. In 12 years, nobody has beat on my door saying, I want this, that, or the next thing televised. I've heard plenty of complaints about the audio quality and the video quality, but nobody said, doggone it, you know, I'm not leaving until the ZBA is broadcast so that I can watch it. They may be out there, but some of you other members of the board may have heard, but certainly not me. Again, we've got to look at what's this going to cost, what's the feasibility, what are the scheduling issues, and I think the police and fire put a strong argument to continue to hold their meetings in public safety. Not that we can't broadcast from there, but to mandate that they're going to come to Solomon and we're going to televise everything. I think that's a very broad brush at this point. It may be something that the next board, when they take over, may want to pursue, may want to look at various commissions and add them one at a time and check the feasibility and the cost. At this time, I don't think it's appropriate for this board to foist that responsibility on our on the future board. Just my thoughts on that. Any closing comment?
Brian,
well said,
Brian.
Brian.
Somebody was going. Go ahead, whoever that was.
I just wanted to add to this. I don't know if you're intending to perhaps remove this from the agenda so that this can go to another board. What concerns me in this discussion is the fact that our police and fire commissions are currently discussing sensitive, personal, detailed information about incidents at their public meetings that are not televised. And we don't know at this point how many of our commissioners are HIPAA compliant, have had HIPAA training, have signed the compliance agreement that they know how to handle this detailed information. I have also not heard an argument why our commissioners need to have this detailed, sensitive, personal information. I think that what Carl said resonates very strongly. If it's something you're uncomfortable discussing in a televised meeting, you should probably not be discussing it in a public meeting, whether it's televised or not.
And you're correct,
especially
Duda.
since you might have individuals in the audience who are recording the meeting. So I think that's something else that needs to be considered and addressed by those particular commissions, because again, you are commissions, you are not operational organizations. You know, these are, I see commission meetings as business type meetings,
Uta,
as operational information with sensitive details, names, addresses, events, belongs within, say, the management team and the staff in conversations that they hold internally. What
Uta,
the
can I
public
address
needs
that?
to know
Yeah,
doesn't
Russ, go
need
ahead.
to go that deep. I'm
Who
Oh,
does
hold
it?
on.
May I address
I'm
that?
moderating the meeting.
I would have liked to finish my sentence.
Yeah,
Thank you.
let Madam Clerk continue, please. Do you yield? Oh, okay, she's muted, so,
Okay, I was just gonna say, Brian, we do not discuss names. We discuss the incident, how we handled it, how we had to extricate the patient, or how we had to deal with it. We are not discussing names. We are trying to keep with our HIPAA. But again, like someone said earlier, it's a small island. It
No.
doesn't take much effort to figure out which rescue we're talking about or whom we're talking about.
I'm going to take a step back here and look at this again with a broader perspective. Having attended a lot of various commission committee meetings, and I'm going to say, not that they need to be uniform, but it seems like inevitably I have to give some guidance that this is what you can talk about in closed session. This is what you cannot do in closed session. This is what you need to have in the minutes. This is what you do not put in the minutes. This is what you need to do to broadcast or to publish your agenda. And I think before we start making, again, the sweeping change, not a really big sweeping change, but to mandate this change, there's going to be new commission, new committee members, there's going to be new liaisons. And I think we need to get everybody starting from the same point. What's expected at a commission, a committee meeting, what you can do, what you cannot do, what you can't do. And I'll just drop back to the police commission back when you can't make decisions that financially bind the township. You know, that's for the board of trustees only. Your minutes have specific state mandated requirements, also by township policy. To demand more than that is just asking for problems. Stick with the law, stick with the policies. If we want to change the township policy, the board can do that. If we want to add cost to the township, the board does that. But right now, it's kind of helter-skelter. And my recommendation is going to be get all these commissions, committees, the chairs, the liaisons, all on the same page, get all the commissions and committees operating under the same set of rules, the same guidelines. From there, we can decide what needs to be televised, what should be televised. Maybe some shouldn't be televised, not to be contrary to open meetings, but maybe some things just don't need to be broadcast. And that be a decision, that a recommendation that the commission could bring to the board could decide. So I will ask to have the commission, the action item 1 tabled and let the new board decide. I don't want to create a mess that the new board has to clean up. So my recommendation is going to be we move that to a future board, let them set up their commissions, committees to their standards, and decide from that point what needs to be, what we want to spend money on broadcasting, what we don't need to spend money on broadcasting, set their policies and go forward.
Brian, if I just quickly, because I know we're running out of time here, but very quickly, a couple of things have already, number one, I'm putting together with Brian Friel to have the commission chairs as well as the board, the new board and the old board members to sit down and go over open meetings so that they will know what can be said, what can't be said. That's very important because I think here some things maybe are being discussed that shouldn't be discussed. I still haven't heard myself a reason why you can talk in an open meeting about something, but if the TV is, if it's being broadcast on TV, it's different. I don't see the difference there. But if listening to you, Brian, I have no problem, and I will do it. I'll bring it up to table that issue, and we'll let the board discuss it and decide.
Okay.
All right. And as far as cost, we knocked a couple of meetings that were being broadcast under the old section 6.8. We took them out of there to make room for these meetings, so there wouldn't be a cost factor involved.
And if I could just respond to
Closing comment, Paul.
Okay, just to put hopefully Uda's mind at rest. When we are in our meetings and they are open, and when there are citizens there, then, you know, we're observant of who's in the audience, and if there's any risk, then we just don't talk about it, we table it, or if it's appropriate, we take it to executive session.
Okay. Well,
Let me just say thank you, Paul, for clarifying. Thank you, Russ, for clarifying. And again, how important it is that we hash these things out. I agree with Supervisor Loftus. I think we have more conversations that need to be had. I appreciate that Jim is pulling this information out. We're going to do a all-out training, right, Jim? We're going to drag all the commission chairs, whether they like it or not. We've been trying to do this for years. Yeah. Townships run differently than businesses. One of the reasons is the Open Meetings Act. Another reason is Freedom of Information Act. Another reason is HIPAA. There are things that we have to do in the public realm and things that we shouldn't or can't do in the public realm.
It might be worth finding out. Okay.
We'll find that out, Jim.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely something to look into. All right, let's close the
Thank
study session. Let's make it 45. And does anybody need a couple-minute break? No requests. All right, Tom Malvesto.
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're ready to go. All right, let's open up the business meeting. With that, I'm going to call the November 9th business meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees to order at, I guess it's 7:45. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
flag of the United States of America,
To the republic.
And to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, the entire board is present. We'll conduct the business meeting as published, or try to. Let's begin. Let's see. Additions and deletions tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Budny.
I have a couple of things here.
Okay.
I would, after we just got through with a study session regarding committee meeting broadcasts, I would put forth that we withdraw this action item at this time to be brought back at a later date.
Okay, moved by Trustee Budny, seconded by
Nelson.
Supervisor. So those, any discussion on this before we take it off the agenda or we vote to?
Did I understand, Jim, correctly? You're removing action item number 1 from the agenda.
That is correct. The committee meeting broadcast.
Okay.
To be a little more discussion and amongst us and fact finding, and then it will be brought back at a later date.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? None for those in favor of removing action item number 1, committee meeting broadcast from tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None offered. That will be removed from, so let's remove action item number 1. Other additions, deletions to tonight's agenda.
Yes,
Go ahead, Jim.
I would also like to, at this point, delete action item number 7, mobile food vendor ordinance. I'd like
I'll
to remove
support.
that from,
I'll support.
okay. And the reason is there's been a lot of chatter that, basically over the weekend and even through today about it, that just tells me that the committee needs to discuss it more before we bring it as an action item.
Which committee?
The subcommittee on the food vending trucks.
Okay, because they already offered their,
Yeah,
all right, well, we have Madam Clerk.
Well, I just wanted to add that I think, again, because there is so much discussion and a lot of, let's just say a lot of talk in the community, I think it might also be a good idea for us to host a public Zoom
Okay.
study session on the subject, so that not only all the parties that have currently met on all different levels, but also the public can all gain access to the same information at the same time.
That would be, I certainly would have no problem with that. Input is a good thing. Communicating is a good thing.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to remove action item 7, the mobile food vendor ordinance, to allow for public input and further discussion. Any other discussion among the board? Okay, none offered. Those in favor of removing action item 7 for future study, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? None offered. That will also be stricken from tonight's agenda. Other,
Brian,
Mr. Nelson.
Jim, I've been asked by Kim O'Farrell if we can move her item, which is number 9 on the action items. Could we move that up and have that be the first one on the action items tonight?
Well,
Hi, Jim.
your motion is to change the order and have action item number 1 or action item 9 become the first topic. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Jim Nelson, seconded by Trustee Budny. I'm sure there's a reason. Jim, what could it be?
Jim Nelson.
Jim or
What?
Kim?
Jim Nelson.
Either one. Somebody tell me why we need to move this to number 1.
Board, can you guys hear me?
I
Go
can
ahead,
hear you,
Kim.
Kim.
Yeah, I have some things just going on personally at home, and that's the only reason for the request.
Okay, just any other discussion? Those in favor of moving the restaurant lease up to the first item, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So rescheduled. Other additions, deletions. Okay, none offered. Those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I'm getting good at this. All right. Pay attention, Jim. All right. So with that, let's move on to brief public comment. And remember, now we've amended the agenda, so limited to tonight's amended agenda. Any public comment? 3 minutes agenda items, none offered.
Can I offer one? Can you hear me? Brian? Bill
I can-
Heil?
Bill Heil, go ahead.
There's an agenda item here pending that's been removed. It's item number 1 on the committee meetings and broadcasts.
Yes.
I think that as a general concept, it's a good idea because an informed public gives opportunity to be better receptive or to give feedback, to participate by maybe joining a commission. And I think that in community involvement as a general concept is a good idea, and this seems consistent to me with that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Other comments on, preferably on things that are still on tonight's agenda,
Yeah.
but that's okay. It was timely, Bill. Other comments on tonight's remaining agenda items? Okay,
don't see any.
offered. Let's get into consent agenda, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Brian. The consent agenda is 20-048. Excuse me. It consists of the Board of Trustees October 26 minutes, check register dated through November 6th, 2020, approval to process and distribute payments through December 4th, 2020, Wayne County Supplemental Winter Maintenance Agreement, which we sign every year, the DTE easement approval, and Township Board attendance at the holiday event resolution, which just basically lets the people that are in office attend these events together, and MDOT aeronautic project closeout.
Support.
Okay, thank you. Moved by the treasurer, seconded by trustee Budny on tonight's consent agenda. Any comments, questions among the board on tonight's consent agenda items? I see none offered. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Let's move on to our appended action items. We will move to the previous number 9, number 1. I need to hear a resolution because I saw an unpublished. So,
Jim?
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. It's a motion to extend Smokey's lease through December 31st, 2021.
Is that it?
That's the motion. And when I get it,
Okay.
I get a second.
Second.
I'll read you.
Okay, so we've got was moved by trustee Nelson, second by trustee Budny. And you want to turn it over to Ms. O'Farrell?
Let me read the recommendation first.
Okay.
Due to the negative business impact of COVID, the Township Board agrees to reduce Smokey's 2020 rent from 36, should that say 2021, Kim?
No.
From
Yeah.
36,000.
That's 2020, Jim.
All right. And then to
I
extend
think your
the original
motion is
lease
off
terms-
then.
No, it's just for November, December, correct?
No.
No, it's
No,
for next year
it-
also.
it's-
Next calendar year.
For next year also. I just haven't gotten that far yet.
It doesn't.
To
make
extend the
sense.
original lease terms through December 31st of 2021. Smokey's agrees to pay $36,000 in rent in 2021, and the township agrees to allow Smokey's to make patio improvements as well as perform exterior brick maintenance. And Kim, you can have it.
Jim, if I may, before Kim takes over, your motion was merely for the extension to 2021. It had not, your motion had nothing to do with reducing the 2020 payments.
Okay.
So we're not, what we have to vote on is only the extension of 2021,
No,
not the.
what we vote on is the motion we present tonight.
And his motion, that's what I'm saying. His
It's not
motion
clear.
was merely the 2021. It didn't include the reduction for 20.
Yes, that's why I'm confused.
Yes.
Yeah, I am a little bit also. So the motion,
Kim,
we can have a two-part motion. That's not the problem.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But we have
Kim,
to
Kim,
decide
Kim,
what the
Kim,
motion is.
Kim, help.
Have a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have the motion in front
Yeah.
of me, but I wrote the motion.
Could
The
I, oh,
Jim.
I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
Jim, if you have it right in front of you, because
Yes.
I ran this through, that'd be great. Thank you.
If basically, I think it might be easiest if we just kind of start all over.
Okay.
Can we do that without taking Jim's, I mean, here's the motion. The motion is due to the negative business impact of COVID, the Township Board agrees to reduce Smokey's 2020 rent from $36,000 to $27,000 for 2020. And furthermore, to extend the original lease terms through December 31st, 2021. Smokey agrees to pay $36,000 rent in 2021 and the township agrees to allow Smokies to make patio improvements as well as perform exterior brick maintenance.
And
Thank
I
you,
will
Mr.
support
Budny.
that.
Now we know what that is the motion.
That is the motion.
Okay, Kim, take it away.
That's the motion out there. I mean, as far as, you know, what's been going on with Smokies, obviously a lot of businesses have struggled. The commission met last month. I was not at that meeting, but obviously Mr. Novak was there, and we had 5 commissioners there. And they did want to go out for RFP. I just want to make that well known that the commission was kind of all in favor of going out for RFP, but they also discussed what was going on with COVID. They also discussed, you know, we could have a risk trying to get somebody in there. It's November. You know, going through that process of trying to get a new vendor right now is going to be a little touchy with COVID. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, brief the board what the commission did talk about. They were kind of on the fence, kind of going back and forth where, you know, we understand what happened, but we do have to move forward. So I just wanted to mention that to the board that the commission was in favor for us to go out for a new RFP and not reduce the rents. They feel that Smokies should pay in full at $36,000. So that's where we're at.
Okay. I'm sure we've all been following the news. 1 in 6 restaurants nationwide is never going to open its doors again.
Mm-hmm.
This, my humble opinion, I haven't managed a restaurant in 50 years, but it's a tough business. And once the door closes, it isn't going to reopen.
Right.
I'm glad we have Smokies there. I'm glad they're willing to stick it out for the upcoming year, because we have no idea what if the new administration does in fact take over. They seem like they're ready to lay down some pretty strict constraints. We've seen the state of Michigan going out of lockdown, heading back towards into it. It's not going to be an easy time, and I'm hoping even with the concessions, that Smokies can survive, that anybody can survive.
Right.
So the fact that they're willing to gut it out and stay, I just don't see the possibility of us getting somebody to come here, take their chances with the bridge, set up operations, and giving us a better deal than we have now. Not that the deal we have is great, but things can get worse. You know, things can always get worse. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I'm hoping for the best. But again, I don't want to leave any messes for anybody else to clean up either. But anyway, I think this is our safest course of action. Other comments?
If I may,
Jim.
Brian, first of all, I agree with you. I agree with Kim in this motion. I think in the situation that we are in right now, that this is the best way to go. I would have a real problem bringing somebody new in here if we can get anybody new to come in and have them starting from scratch, because whether they have an ongoing business in some other town or not, coming to Grosse Ile is completely different, and they're going to be, you know, it just be a very, very tough road, I think. So from that standpoint, I certainly agree with this. Just Kim, a quick question. Do you have a document that they are going to sign regarding this?
I will prepare the document and send it to the board.
Okay.
And basically, you know, I have the 20 agreement that's in place right now, you know, with the 65% electric, all of those stipulations in place. I'll pretty much kind of draft that back up, get that to the board, bring it to the board at the next meeting once this is approved.
And that was going to be my next question.
Yes.
Everything else in that lease is staying the same.
That is correct.
Okay. Yes, and if I look forward to seeing the document.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim.
Yep.
Okay. Other comments, questions on the lease with Smokies? Mr. Bloetscher.
Thank you, Brian. I have a question for Kim regarding the third paragraph where they talk about making some upgrades to the building. an outdoor patio with the permission of the Township and Rec Commission to enclose part of the patio and make it a year-round environment. Also, maintenance repairs to be completed on the exterior brickwork and lighting of the patio area and rear of the restaurant. To break those down, Kim, what kind, we don't have an idea what exactly they're proposing. It appears today that they're contributing costs and paying for items in lieu of or for a reduction in rent. Is that a fair statement?
Well, it's been very, very brief discussions. I know discussions took place more with Mr. Riem and Mr. Nelson on those items. And again, everything is still pending. I know they had some vision as, you know, to expand outside. But again, if they're going to make any improvement, obviously any improvement to township property has to be approved by the board. So these are just brief discussions because they are thinking outside the box. If we're going to continue with COVID, we want to make the improvements so there's more seating outside for people. That's, you know, that's kind of what they were referring to. So will that happen? I don't know the answer to that. So,
excuse me. I didn't mean
ahead.
to interrupt you, Kim. Carl, those improvements are for 2021. There will be no reduction in pay. They are not making improvements and offsetting it with rent reduction.
Right.
No, it just appears to me that they are receiving a reduced rent now and will be using those funds.
I see.
Okay.
To proceed next year, so that while their rent remains at $3,000 a month in 2021, the savings this year, if I'm looking at it correctly, is about $5,400. And that's what I was wondering what they're going to do with the savings. So it's not really a reduction, but it's partially a return into capital.
Well, that's one way you could look at it. But
yeah.
They haven't made any returns into capital yet, but they're getting the rent reduction.
Correct.
Mr. Bloetscher, when we had those discussions, it wasn't the intention that they would trade. It was more along the lines as Recreation Director O'Farrell said, if the COVID continues, they want to maximize their outdoor seating so they can be successful. They were postured at the beginning of this calendar year to have a breakout year, and then came March. So it's very, very disappointing for them and for us because it was, it takes time to build a business.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
Other comments, questions on the revised lease?
Mr. Supervisor?
Madam Clerk.
So I think that's an excellent plan moving forward. I agree with your assessment that this would be a very dicey time to try to start new with a new vendor in that facility. Also given the history that we've had with that facility. And we all know that patio wasn't really built with the intention of outdoor seating for a restaurant. I think it was well adapted in the last few years, but also given the future of what's going to be happening across the river, and we're hoping stays that way across the river, to maximize seating on an outdoor space facing a river or just in general at the golf course, I think is a good decision anyway, whether there's COVID or not. I think people really do in the warmer months enjoy sitting outside and the ambiance of sitting outside. And if you continue the riverfront concerts, I think that's all going to go toward helping that site succeed.
Okay. Good point. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Other comments?
Brian,
Tom,
please. What I'm uncomfortable with is we essentially have no document in front of us. We have some verbalized promises or it's like somebody's wish list that this is what we're going to do moving forward. If this board votes on this and approves this tonight, we're not approving a contract. We're approving a concept. So again, somebody's wish list, this is what I'd like to do. Without seeing a contract, if there's any other changes made on it, what am I voting on? It's like signing a blank check and hoping that you don't, you don't put a number on there larger than you and myself have agreed to. That's what's troubling me, is that there's nothing to document what's going to take place. What are their plans? What are, expand their outside seating? Well, yeah, I understand that, and I understand the times, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's Tom. That's not part of the motion. The motion is to reduce the rent for 2020 from 36 to 27,000, and to continue the existing contract at the full price through the December 31st of 2021 at 36,000.
Right. What's troubling is the contract is not in front of us. We don't know what that contract says. The existing contract. I understand the wording, but a lot of this is based on what they intend on doing moving forward to improve their ability to do a business. I just don't see all the proper documentation, and this board is gonna vote to approve this, and we're gonna push this off on the incoming board. And well, that's what the other board said, and that's what I'm really troubled with. There's no documentation to go along.
Tom,
with
I think there's enough of us here. There's 3 of us here that will be continuing on the other board, and as I asked Kim for the document, we will look it over, and if it isn't the same, if there are changes, we'll catch that and determine what to do.
Correct.
The goal tonight was to get the dollar amounts situated to draft the contract, because I don't want to go.
How many months has the reduction in lease rates been in effect? How many months has that been going on?
I don't understand what you're saying.
When did you reduce the current rates for 2020 in the lease?
No, it has not. We have not. But they have not
been paying a reduced rate.
They currently are. Yes, they are paying what they can pay.
So when did that start? Is what I'm asking.
It started back in May.
Okay, the board wasn't aware of that. It was never brought before the board.
Correct. We have been negotiating since August to come up with a solution to bring to the board.
June,
That's
July,
what we're doing. That's what we're doing right now.
August. Two board meetings ago, the liaison refused to read a motion to go off for an RFP. Two weeks ago, the last board meeting, we were asked to approve it.
Plus, we've also been
now
in negotiations.
It's coming around to a whole different subject.
We've also been in communication with the CRC as well, and negotiating, trying to come up with the best solution to bring to the board. And negotiations have been going on for 2 months. So this is what is being brought to the board. I'm just asking for a vote, approve, disapprove. I will have the contract at the next meeting, and that's where I'm at.
Well, comments, questions? None offered. Would you read the motion again?
Yes. Motion that due to the negative business impact of COVID, the Township Board agrees to reduce Smokey's 2020 rent from $36,000 to $27,000, and furthermore, to extend the original lease terms through December 31st, 2021. Smokey's agrees to pay $36,000 rent in 2021, and the Township agrees to allow Smokey's to make patio improvements as well as perform exterior brick maintenance.
Do we want to leave that maintenance, the improvement part in the motion, or just go with the straight? The straight rent.
Yep.
Stop after the rent.
I agree.
Stop after the rent.
Okay.
And if they choose to do any additions to the
property,
it
comes back to the board.
Correct.
For Brian Friel's purposes, strike, and the township agrees to allow Smokies to make patio improvements as well as perform exterior brick maintenance. That will not be part of the motion.
Got it.
Okay, so we're clear on the motion. It's strictly the rent reduction for 2020, and the lease extension at full rent through 2021.
Feel better with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hear you being paged in the background.
Yes, thank you so much.
Kim, real quick before you go.
Yes.
Kim, I'm sorry. We kind of shifted gears in the discussion before I could ask. I know from the work I do in the clinic that there are state funds available to businesses to mitigate the negative impact of the coronavirus. I don't know what kind of assistance maybe Smoky is getting or what they've done on their own. Is it possible that with your grant writing experience, Supervisor Loftus, can she use some of her resources to try to help Smokies get access to some of the state funds that are available?
These are mostly through Small Business Administration, administers most of it.
Yeah.
Trish, I believe, is aware of some of it through DDA, but we'll certainly, if Scott and Tom are unaware of this SBA, these SBA loans, and sometimes some of them are actually grants.
Yeah.
We'll
And
get
you really have to do in your own research to find some of these things. They don't necessarily come to you. You really have to hunt for them. And I don't know if they have that kind of access.
Uda,
I'm just thinking
They do.
if Kim,
Uda, they're aware of some of them.
Okay.
They have applied
actually-
for some things.
Actually, Debbie Dingle has a lot of resources that she posts on her
true.
sites also. So we'll make sure they at least know about it. I can't make them fill out any
right.
Right.
Thank you.
aware of it.
Go, Kim.
Frank.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Brian, can I
Thank you
click-
so much.
Can I
Go
clarify
ahead,
one thing?
Nelson.
I said of the word motion, I put motion, but actually it was a recommendation. So if I just said a recommendation, then I would have read the whole motion. So it's my fault that I shouldn't have said it was a motion. I just should have said it was a
Hey,
recommendation.
it's already passed. It's already passed.
Just, for the record, thank you.
For the record.
And
Okay.
that's how legislation gets made, Jim.
Like
Thank you.
legislation and sausage. Okay, here's my favorite part, levying taxes. So with that, we talked about this previously. The motion is Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees levied on the taxable value of said township for the year 2020 winter billing a tax of 10.8721 mils on the taxable value thereof, said value being $641,334,851.
Support.
Okay, thank you, Jim. The background, in a previous meeting, we had to put bring the winter tax levy. We had to approve it so that the levy could go out. And we knew we'd have to revise it if the millage is passed in the November general election. The millage is all passed, therefore the total millage levy changes. It goes up. Thank you, generous Grosse Ile Township voters. I think all those millages were good investments. But the last one was on the September 30th, 2020 meeting, and we submitted that to the county. The fire equipment, the recreation, road maintenance renewals passed in November. So we have to send a revised L 4029 to Wayne County prior to the preparation of the 2020 winter roll. And that is the purpose of this motion tonight. Are there any questions from the members of the board? It's just business. None offered. Those in favor of the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees levying on the taxable value of said township for the year 2020 winter billing a tax of 10.8721 mils on the taxable value thereof, said taxable value being $641,334,851. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. Thank you. Mr. Treasurer, send out the bills. Okay, now it's going to be the Jim Budny and DPS show.
Yes, it is.
Jim and
Derek, are you there?
I am.
Okay, you're going to be hearing from us on the next few items. So motion, pending approval of the Groseal Department of Public Service Commission, the Groseal Township Board hereby approves the declaration as surplus and subsequent disposal of a 2000 New Holland backhoe. The backhoe will be disposed of via the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network or trade-in, the higher of the two bids.
Okay, moved by Trustee Budny, seconded by Treasurer Van Os. Let's start moving some equipment around, Derek.
Yeah, I want to apologize first. A lot of my action items this evening have some contingencies placed on them. Basically that the Department of Public Services Commission approves these. And we don't like doing it after the fact, but the way that the meetings were designed or the meeting schedule worked out, DPS meets tomorrow,
right,
and the Township Board meets today. We're not looking at having a DPS meeting in December and January, so we wanted to take advantage of.
I have another sparkling water.
Take advantage
I'm sorry.
You can, yes.
Yeah, by all means.
Take advantage of the fact that we had these two meetings close to one another. So I just wanted to apologize for that. We don't prefer to do it that way, but that's just the way the meeting schedule worked out. Onto this specific action item, it goes kind of in lockstep with action item number 4. We have a surplus piece of equipment if we end up purchasing the piece of equipment under item number 4 that we'd like to dispose of and use some of that revenue to offset some of the costs of the purchase of the new piece of equipment. The new piece of equipment that we have listed in number 4 will help to fill the void of some of the redundancy that this piece of equipment that we're getting rid of in action item number 3 provides. So really it becomes not necessary to retain this piece of equipment if we purchase the piece of equipment listed in number 4. So we'd rather not hold on to equipment that we don't use. We want to get it off our insurance rolls. It doesn't do us any good for it to sit around and to degrade and then have to do maintenance to it. We want to try to clear it out and get ready for the new stuff. So that's what the intent of this motion is.
And Derek,
yes.
We're looking at about $16,000 for this piece of equipment?
Yeah, so I like to utilize, and I believe it's an approved method through the Township Board, basically an auction website called Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, where the majority of the state's DPW departments gets rid of surplus equipment. It basically is like an eBay auction. The general public can bid on it, and it goes to the highest bidder. In this bid format, we can also place a reserve on the piece of equipment. So what I like to try to do is to get a trade-in estimate, and then I put that as basically the bid reserve so that we never sell it for less than what we could get via a trade-in. So if we do better than the 16,000, great. If we do worse than the 16,000, we're guaranteed the 16,000 to offset the cost of the new purchase. So that's the way that the disposal would be handled. We get a lot more exposure through the Mitten Trade Network. If we did like a local auction via sealed envelope bid or something, the exposure isn't great. The return isn't great. This gives us access to the most bidders using an organization like Mitten. So, and there is a fee. It's only 5%, but we build that into the bid so that the winning bidder is responsible for that 5% surcharge for the bid service. So basically, our costs are covered from that standpoint.
Very good. Any questions from the board? I mean, you had a lot of documentation that followed this and lots of pictures of the equipment.
Yeah, and we do, for the benefit of the residents, we do still have a backhoe, our primary backhoe, which is a newer piece of equipment, our cat backhoe. So this has always served as a redundant piece of equipment for quite a few years. So we're not getting rid of our first line, we're getting rid of our second line unit.
Derek, also, I'd like to add that all these items that you're going to see tonight from DPS have actually been discussed by the commission. They're aware of all of these. We
Right.
just haven't had the final action on them, which we'll be looking at tomorrow.
That's an accurate statement. A lot of these things were discussed and have been discussed for a while, especially during our budget study sessions. When we reviewed the priorities for the year, these were all things that we have discussed, so.
Okay, any other, I mean, you covered this pretty well. We know what we're doing and why. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, none offered. Those in favor of, again, pending approval by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission, Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves the declaration as surplus and subsequent disposal of a 2000 New Holland backhoe. Backhoe will be disposed of via the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network or trade in the higher of the two bids. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries, and that'll walk us right into
This, this goes hand in hand. I have a motion pending approval of the Grosse Ile Department of Public Service Commission. The Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves the purchase of a Caterpillar Model 306A excavator with attachments at a cost of $92,755 from Michigan Caterpillar. In addition, the Grosse Ile DPS Commission approves the purchase of a Trail King trailer at a cost of $11,699.
Okay, moved by trustee Budny, seconded by treasurer Van Oss. Take it away.
Bear with me on some of this explanation because some of the finances can get a little bit complicated. I will say on a real basic level, one of the things that our DPS commission through our budget process determined is a priority of ours is to purchase some equipment to help us clear roadsides. As you are all familiar with, Wayne County is responsible to clear the roadsides in the township, but unfortunately they don't have the capacity or the availability of equipment or personnel to be able to do this. So over the years, the township has basically taken on that responsibility because we understand the safety aspects associated with roadside cutting. Obviously, we have a deer population on the island that we have car vehicle accidents or vehicle deer accidents with. Having those roadsides trimmed properly helps to give the residents the opportunity to have some forewarning by being able to see the deer on the side of the road before they jump out. The other thing is line of sight. I can't tell you how many phone calls our DPW department gets regarding either stop signs or intersections being covered by vegetation. Ditch lines are important to have cut for drainage aspects. So there's a lot of reasons to do roadside cutting. Because the township does not have equipment to be able to support this operation, it puts my staff in a position to have to do this necessary activity using things like weed whips, zero-turn mowers. The equipment we have to be able to perform these activities is not adequate and doesn't lead to a very efficient removal of the vegetation that we've basically taken on as a responsibility of ours to remove. So when we looked at all these different things during the budget hearings and during the budget process, we made the determination to set aside some dollars to be able to buy equipment that would be able to satisfy these functions that we've taken on. So what's being recommended after a discussion with staff and also some equipment vendors is basically a mini excavator. And this mini excavator would have an attachment on the end of the excavator boom, which is a flail mower. That flail mower would be operated from the excavator that would be on the roadside, and we would cut the ditch lines and the roadsides with this piece of equipment. The previous action item that you guys approved for the removal or the disposal of that redundant piece of equipment, it was redundant because this mini excavator does provide some of the functions that the backhoe that we just got rid of provided. So this is a second line piece of equipment in case our primary backhoe excavator should go down or our backhoe loader should go down. this provides some of those functions in case that unit is not available. So it serves a couple of functions. The primary one is the roadside cutting, but the secondary is also the redundancy for our frontline loader backhoe. The format for financing, we didn't want to bring this action item before you unless the road millage, maintenance millage had passed, which we're very thankful to the residents that they voted that by an overwhelming majority to continue to allow us to have those sources of revenue to support the things that we do with the roadside. I'm sorry, with the road maintenance millage. The funding for this piece of equipment will come out of that, because that's really what we're talking about here is road maintenance. Roadside maintenance is just as important as road maintenance. So that's where the source of funding is coming to pay for this piece of equipment. Originally, we had designed this to be basically a financed piece of equipment through Michigan CAT. The financing format would be at basically a 5-year term. That's the way we had it set up in the budget. And the rate for the purchase was right around $16,000 per year. It's a 2.99% interest rate. I did have some conversations with the finance director. She had proposed some opportunities for us to do some internal borrowing within the DPW department. So we're going to look at that in order to try to save ourselves some interest and get some of these costs down. But I still would want to maintain the amortization schedule that's being proposed in the action item, because our road maintenance account is a very small account. It's only about $250,000 a year. And if we get outside the $15,000 to $16,000 a year payment schedule or amortization schedule, we start putting the budget at risk of impacting other activities that we do. So this was laid out during the budget process to ensure that we could make this purchase and still continue to do the things that we do. If the finance department, if Ann is able to provide some internal borrowing, it'll get these payments down and will provide a better amortization schedule or a better payment schedule than what's being proposed for you in tonight's motion. So I would ask for the flexibility for the finance department to make the determination whether it's going to be an internally financed purchase or whether it's going to be an externally financed purchase. All indications are it's going to be internal. So, if we have the opportunity to self-finance these things, especially when it's within our own department, obviously we want to try to save our taxpayers as much money as possible. And if we can pay 0 interest, obviously that's our interest rather than paying 3%. So, that's what we're looking at. It's a priority of ours to make this purchase. We're buying a trailer in addition to the piece of equipment, so we can trailer the piece of equipment around the township. Previously this year, we ordered a truck that was replacing one of our older trucks. The capacity of that truck was set to make sure it could pull this piece of equipment. So there was some forethought to buy a truck that was capable of carting this piece of equipment around town. So things are lining up nicely to have this as a complete package for us to do the things that our residents expect us to do. The last piece of equipment I want to pass along is the purchase of both the trailer and the excavator being done through basically contract bidding. So my deal is basically a state bid list. So the state of Michigan makes available to local municipalities their contract pricing for equipment and other commodities. So we're buying this piece of equipment off the state bid list, which is basically satisfies our bid requirements. And we generally can get a better price because it's a much larger contract rather than just the Township of Groseal buying one piece of equipment. It's the state's contract, which they allow for better pricing because it's multiple pieces of equipment. So the bid requirements are being met through the format that we're purchasing these, which is cooperative bidding through the state of Michigan.
Yeah, my deal relieves us of the responsibility going out for competitive bids.
Well, and it is a bid, but it's purchasing off a much larger bid contract than what we could ever hope to achieve.
Right.
So with that, I've said a lot. I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
You answered the first question I had, or was going to have, was, do we have a truck big enough to move this around? So, a piece of equipment around, and you answered that question. So,
yep. We're just waiting on it to get here with COVID. The vehicle we bought, we're hoping to get it by Thanksgiving, but that order was placed in March. So, but unfortunately, it's just been a long time coming. So.
Yeah, you can't fix it, but again, you had the forethought. We're getting the pieces in place to do what the residents expect. Madam Clerk.
You know, I don't think anything's going to grow much in the next few months. But Derek, I guess too that this is going to reduce some of the staffing hours for doing work on the roadside maintenance by having one, super piece of equipment that does what previously you had several people using smaller equipment to do.
That's an accurate statement, most definitely.
Yep. They were doing it by hand, correct?
Yeah.
Eric?
When we would get a complaint, we would generally put in a work order with the county. When they wouldn't show up for a month and a half, we would send a guy out with a weed whip to do a whole ditch line. And you guys all have seen Fragmite, when it's over your head and you're in there with a weed whip, it's not an efficient way to do things. So
it's good news. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions on this purchase? I think, obviously you've done your homework. This is dropping into place properly. Therefore, pending approval by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Service Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves the purchase of a Caterpillar Model 306 Alpha excavator with attachments at a cost of $92,755 from Michigan Caterpillar. In addition, the DPS Commission approves the purchase of a Trail King trailer at the cost of $11,699. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Oh, thank you. Let's move on.
My turn. Motion pending approval of the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission. The Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves an amendment to the original contract between Grosse Ile Township and Fishbeck Engineering to allocate work previously scheduled to be done by Grosse Ile Township staff. The reallocated work is associated with the sanitary sewer structure evaluation. The total adjustment to the project budget is a net increase of $92,500.
And Mr. Budny, if I might make a quick suggestion, there was a typo on the agenda action item and also the history, purpose, and explanation. The net increase is actually $90,000, not $90,500.
Okay.
If we get net increase of 90,000.
Okay, so the motion stands revised to
with the dollar amount.
Okay, I'll second it. And
okay.
Let's get into asset management.
Yeah.
Your state mandate.
So
Derek, I'll let you.
Okay. There should have been an email that went out to you guys prior to the meeting, which gave you a little better explanation for what we're looking for, what this scope of work is. Okay. So originally when the asset management plan was established about 2 years ago, it's basically a 4-year project. And that 4-year project was designed in order to accomplish state mandates for reviewing the condition of our sanitary sewer system. And when that scope of work was put together, a budget was put together, and that budget was basically stretched across the 4-year project length. That budget had a variety of different work that was associated with it, some of which the Township of Grosse Ile was going to do itself. The work that we were going to do ourselves is basically the work that was listed in the memo that you received today, which was GPS locating of manholes and then manhole inspections. Unfortunately, although the DPS department had the best intentions in mind of doing that associated work, itself, we have had some staffing constraints due to some members of the staff being off due to medical conditions. So due to that, we haven't been at a full staffing capacity in quite some time. Really what that's done to us is put us in a position where we've only been able to do the things that we absolutely have to do and are responsible to do. This ancillary work that we had obligated ourselves to when we set up this project list 2 years ago, we weren't and are not able to get to. There is a timeline on when this work needs to be completed based upon the plan that we had put together with the state, not only from the standpoint of this specific work, but work that has to occur that requires the information that's generated through this work. That work cannot happen until this work has been completed. So it's basically, this is holding things up by not being able to have this stuff done. So what is being asked is to basically add this scope of work to the engineer's responsibility, which would have been their responsibility originally if the township hadn't taken it on and offered to do it in-house. When we take a look at what this means is for the overall budget for the project, it really, what it ends up being is about a $90,000 increase to the overall budget for the entire project. And then in the next action item, we'll talk about how we're going to fund that. We do have the money in the budget to be able to do it. We address that in the next action item. So, you know, we can cover the cost of this additional work. And really what it comes down to is it's work that has to be done. It's work we're obligated to do. It's work that's necessary for our asset management plan. And it's quite a large piece of work that really is integral to the overall asset management plan that we're doing. So I know that the explanations that are listed in Rains's memo that you received today might be a bit complicated. So I can walk you through that if you'd like, or I can open it up to questions that you might have regarding what's being asked of you tonight.
If I may just say that, you know, this again, to reemphasize what Derek said, you know, this is work that has to be done. We've had an extended illness in the department, so they have been shorthanded, and they are behind on this. It has to be done. The state is breathing, will be breathing down our neck if it isn't done, and we just have to do it. So any questions out there about this?
Yeah, I'm trying to wicker the two motions together. I know they're separate, but they're kind of tie-barred. But this first one, I see the state mandate for an asset management plan it's about 2 years old. There was another blind side. You must do this, and you must figure out a way to pay for it. So we're plugging along with it.
To answer your question, and not to jump too far ahead into the next action item, Brian, you know, we have a 4-year budget that we've established for the work that we're doing. That each year's work has been incorporated into our budget for the DPW department. If we're adding work and adding costs that we hadn't anticipated incurring within this fiscal year, obviously we have to find the money from somewhere. So in taking a look at our performance of our budget to date, we do have an account that we've drastically basically underspent the expenditure line item that we have. So in the next action item, my recommendation is to move some of those funds from that account into this account to cover these additional costs, so that the net result to the overall DPW budget for this fiscal year won't be impacted. As a net total, we should stay within the budget for the fiscal year, even with this additional work. So hopefully that explains things a little bit better.
Yeah, well, again, it has to be done and we have the dollars to pay for it. So we're just going to move some money around and reallocate work we were going to do because we can't do it, but we have to get it done. So we're going to have to go out to Fishbeck. I guess that's kind of the short version, Derek.
That's the short version.
Right. I could have saved you 10 minutes.
Sorry.
Questions, comments from the board? I see. I mean, we have, this is not exciting stuff, like tax levies to talk about.
Right.
Or buying a new tracked excavator, but it's got to be done. And we've got a timeline to get it done. So with that, with no additional comments or questions offered, pending approval by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves an amendment to the original contract between Grosse Ile Township and Fishbeck Engineering to allocate work previously scheduled to be done by Grosse Ile Township staff. Reallocation work is associated with sanitary sewer structure evaluations. Total adjustment to the project budget is a net increase of $90,000. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None offered. That carries. I guess
one more time.
Equally exciting.
Pending the approval by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Service Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves the amendment of the 2021 budget to the following account number 5990.591.970.000 sewer capital outlay repair and replacement. Currently, it was set at 145,000. After the amendment, it will be set at 50,000, a decrease of $95,000. Account 5990.5991.5932.000 maintenance main repair. Currently, it's set at $232,500. With the amendment, it will be increased to $327,500, the $95,000 amount.
Second.
Okay, who seconded?
I believe Mr. Nelson.
Okay. Dale, help me out on this. This is all moving dollars around within the same cost center. Does the board need to approve this? Is it
Yes, I would recommend that the board do so because it is such a large item and it's specifically for the identified items.
Okay. I mean, it's we have it listed as a budget amendment. That's the way we'll carry it on. I guess with a smaller amount, we can leave it within the cost center, but this way
And there's different philosophies and theories on how you address the budget amendment. Some communities do it every single time there's a dollar item over.
Mm-hmm.
We balance and focus on the cost centers. And that's just a choice that, historically we've made for 30 plus years. But this is so large, we wanted it to be upfront, out, and in the open, and made the board aware of.
Well, okay. It's just numbers. Give me the background and fill us in on how this will get moved around.
To Dale's point, he makes a very good point. I want you guys to be aware that if we're going to be incurring additional costs, that we're finding the money somewhere without a net increase to the budget for the DPW department. So we wanted to make you guys aware of the last action item, where those dollars are coming from, and then also understand the logic behind it, and also put some facts to it to show you that if we're moving these dollars around, we're not adversely putting one cost center in a bad position by undercutting it for the balance of the fiscal year, that we've taken that into consideration. So as you see, we've spent about $7,000 out of that account, out of $145,000 for the year. The analysis of our sewer system that would generate the type of faults that this account would be taxed with So basically, when they're televising the system, if we find a problem, we use this account to fix that problem. The televising of the system is basically complete for this fiscal year. So the likelihood that we're going to come across a problem is very, very minor. So the account is obviously far under budget at this point in the fiscal year, and we would expect it to be far under budget at the end of the fiscal year. So that's where we're moving those dollars to the additional work that we've basically taken on in the previous action item. So hopefully that's I know it's a long explanation for probably a more simple situation, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. This is one of those things I see that as we go through the GIS mapping and the televising and finding the flaws and the problems in our sewer system, and when we fix them, they're long-term savings that these generate. These things this work could eventually pay for itself if we stop the incursions and we increase the efficiency. So plus it's got to be done. It's just the right thing for us to be doing. And fortunately, we've got the dollars to do it and do it relatively soon. So I don't have any questions on it. I'm ready to, cut the funds and get you guys working on this. I do have a question on the one sheet, the proposed, the systems, the AMP draft schedule, asset management plan. You've got a revised date of November 4th. What was the original date of that? If you know offhand, because it says now through April 2020. I know that now is not now. It was the, dare I say, the then now.
Are you talking about the completion of the full project?
I'm talking, well, just the proposed, table 3, the proposed sanitary sewage asset management plan draft schedule. It's page 47 on the packet. It's just a curiosity issue. When did we, because I don't remember back when we kicked off these projects. I remember a lot of the discussions on televising and mapping, and now we're getting into finding.
April 2023 completion date.
Yeah, I think what Brian's asking is when did we start? We start. The first thing showing on page 3 there, or table 3, is now. When is now? What was now?
Yeah, so you guys had started on this project before I had gotten here. So I think you started in like late 2018. I think you'd been about a half a year or a year into your televising program when I came on board. So it'd have been, and maybe Ted, you can speak to it, but I believe it was late 2018.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're.
Okay. Again, that was a curiosity issue. We've been making headway on this, and we need to keep going. We need to get this done, get that whole system fixed and running efficiently. Any other questions? Not exciting stuff, to be sure, but it's what we have to do to keep things working. Questions, other questions, comments from the board? Well, with none offered, I guess I'll read the whole thing. Pending approval by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby approves the amendment of the 2020 to 21 budget to the following. Account number 5990.591.970.000, the sewer capital outlay repair and replacement. The current budget amount is $145,000. The new will be $50,000. It will be a $95,000 reduction. And account number 5990.591.932.000, maintenance main repair. Current balance is $232,500. The new balance will be $327,500. Increase of that $95,000. And those approving this transaction, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Did I hear an A? No, none? Okay, good. Motion carries. Again, thanks for the legwork, letting us, keeping us advised on where we're going with these asset management plans, and that we will be able to comply with the state requirements.
Thank you guys for your support, time, and understanding tonight. Thanks.
Well, you're
Thank
gonna have a busy
Thank
meeting
you,
tomorrow
Derek.
night, apparently.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, this will move us to, bring us to number, okay, we dropped 7, so number 8, the extension. So I'll introduce this one. Recommend the Grosse Township Board of Trustees extend the lawn maintenance contract to More Landscaping for additional 2 years for the 2021-2022 season, subject to the unit prices, terms and conditions, the April 12th, 2019 Township Board approval.
Support.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budny. Contract extension, the background, Carl Moore's landscaping, More Landscaping, is offered to hold the prices down, hold the prices, no increases for an additional 2 years. Review of More Landscaping services of the township staff supports the extension of the contract. And then there's an email, the extension, and I don't have the original lawn maintenance agreement. I'll have Dale fill me in if there are any questions on that. But extension of the service to More Landscaping for additional 2 years.
Support.
Are there questions? Are there questions on the contract, comments on Moore's performance? We know we're kind of, Madam Clerk, but you got on mute. There you go.
Yeah, me and the mute. And then when I need it, I don't have it on. Derek, you know I got to ask this question, but with this new piece of equipment, is there more that DPS staff can do that we might want to take away from a contractor, or are we still better served by having a contractor? When we see all the different things that he's handling for us, where does the DPS, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, there is some work with this new piece of equipment that we're going to be able to do that we would have probably, gotten Carl to do. For example, on East River Road, right before you go on to Hickory Island, we had a lot of complaints. We had a windstorm and all the fragmite laid down, and it was basically in the road, and it was causing a real safety issue. I had staff already allocated somewhere else where I couldn't get down there quickly, and we had to hire Carl to come and clean that out. And that was basically because my staff just didn't have the 2 days to go in there and weed whack it all. If I had this piece of equipment, I could have been able to do it, but I don't, and I didn't. So I had to hire somebody to do it. So you're correct in that statement. There is some work that we're going to now be able to do that we would have normally outsourced. So.
Okay.
I was going to say, Uda, if you go through Carl's contract and the pieces, that'll probably pretty much be the same. It's what Derek is saying, that we won't have to take someone like him on in the, for the special things that happen.
The extra
Right.
projects or the emergencies. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments on this contract extension?
I would just, Uta, that the two pieces of equipment that, as a comparable, would be like comparing an apricot to a watermelon. They're two totally different pieces of equipment. The excavator is a large piece of equipment, about half the size of a school bus. So no, that's not. It wouldn't take away any of Carl's work. But I guess my question is, we're just going to extend Carl's contract. Is there some reason this didn't go out for rebid? Based on a number of lawn cutting services on Grosse Seal. I'm just curious why, if it had gone out for bid, and if not, why it hadn't.
The original contract was a 2-year term with 3 and 4 options, and Mr. Moore reached out to us and said he'd like to hold his prices, and he requested that extension. They surveyed the staff, and we're very pleased with the services, and we'd recommend that we move forward with an extension.
But it allowed, in the existing contract, it allowed for an extension.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that just make it clear to everybody. For no particular reason other than that.
Good reason. But yeah, it's a good reason. Thanks, Tom. Other questions, comments? Oh, let's see. None offered. With that, recommend the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees extend the lawn maintenance contract to More Landscaping for an additional 2 years for the 2021-2022 seasons, subject to the unit prices, terms, and conditions of the April 12th, 2019 Township Board approval. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and that should conclude tonight's action items. With that, Clerk's report, Madam Clerk.
Unmute first, engage mouth next. So good evening, everybody. I want to start out with some sad news that I'm sure you've all already heard, but just for the community's sake, on Monday, we received word that our very first and longtime cable administrator, communications administrator, Ted Fournier, died. And I just wanted to make a short tribute to Ted. He literally built our communications department out of the ashes. Not many of you will remember when we used to hold our township board meetings in the music room of the middle school, and the all of our video and communications equipment was stored in one of the instrument storage rooms. And during one of the meetings, it got especially heated, not the meeting so much, but the equipment in the storage room. It caught fire and had to be put out. And from that came Ted Fournier into the township and said, you know, I can help you rebuild this. And we thought he had the skills and the competence and the humble pay requirements that we were willing to acknowledge. And he rebuilt us out of that scenario. Ted also mentored several generations of Grosse Ile students, my kids among them, the Rooney kids, lots of students from Grosse Ile Middle School and high school over the years, trained to become camera operators, sound operators, editors. They participated later in videotaping and broadcasting Island Fest, school concerts, parades on Macomb Street, and now, you know, what is now the Friday night Grosse Ile football. But that all started with Mr. Ted Fournier. And so I just wanted to acknowledge what a great contribution he made to our community. Even though he never lived here, he spent a lot of time and energy and spirit here. And he will be missed. He was a very generous soul who will be missed. My second item tonight comes out of my day job as a medical practice manager. We got word that Wayne County has named the Woodhaven Recreation Center on 23,101 Hall Road as the site for a drive-through COVID and flu testing and flu shot site on November 21 and 22 from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is a free testing and free flu shot site. They are trying to basically mitigate a storm on two fronts. And according to the announcement, there is no pre-registration necessary. There is no insurance or a doctor's note necessary. This is sponsored solely by Wayne County and open to all residents of Wayne County. I think there may be more of these announcements coming out. I believe they also advertised this with an article in the News Herald. But as you know, our Grosse Ile numbers are climbing. It's not, you know, incredibly alarming, but it is concerning. And I think in our practice, we're hearing more and more people calling that they were notified of potential exposures in different social settings around the community. So I just wanted people to know that that was going to be available. I think the one thing that we all already know about, but you know, it's my job to make the announcement, is that guess what? We had an election last week. On Tuesday, November 3rd, we had the general election for 2020. And while we've all been sitting on tenterhooks, no matter what party your loyalties go to, the one result we were all most curious about is, did the millages pass? And who got elected to township office? I mean, those were the burning questions, and nobody reported it anywhere except right here on our broadcast. So just for the record, we had on election day 2,672 voters going to the live polls. We had 5,334 absent voter ballots returned and tallied for a total of 8,006 voters out of a total of 9,596 voters. So we hit, drum roll please, 83.43% voter turnout. In my many years in elections for Grosse Ile, I think we hit a high mark. I don't think we've ever gotten quite that many people out to vote in a national election. We can also break down the votes by straight party tickets. And if you go on the Grosse Ile Clerk's website, you can download a report by precinct. It's 132 pages long. But if you are a numbers person, it will let you spend many happy hours sifting through the numbers and trying to decide what it all means. But for Grosse Ile, what it meant is, and I guess we knew some of these outcomes, our supervisor is going to be James Budny with a total of 5,527 votes. Our treasurer for Grosse Ile is going to be David Nadeau with a total of 5,362 votes. The township clerk is going to be Uta O'Connor with a total of 4,940 votes. I know there are people interested in finding out about this column called unresolved write-in. We have to wait for Wayne County Board of Canvassers to tally up what are considered the legitimate candidate votes. So as you know, unless a candidate files to run as a write-in candidate, we do not count the write-in votes. But when a candidate does file to run as a write-in candidate, our precincts do count all the votes. We have to count every iteration of the write-in vote. So every different spelling gets its own category. And so it's up to the county canvassers to decide which of those will be counted and which will not be counted. But the unresolved write-in count for the clerk's office was 1,188. We also had a write-in candidate for trustee. That was a total of 211 write-in votes that were counted. How many of those? There were write-in names written in for every office, but again, we don't count them if there was not an affidavit filed. Let's go on. We have one more category. Grosse Ile Township School Board. Our three candidates that prevailed in the election are Frank DeMar III with 3,218 votes, Daniel P. Murphy with 3,366 votes, and Nadia Tunova with 3,437 votes. The Grosse Ile Township millage renewal for recreation, deep sigh of relief. The yes vote was 4,771. The no vote, 2,332. The Grosse Ile Township millage renewal for road maintenance was the yes vote, 5,410. No votes, 1,762. And the Grosse Ile Township millage renewal for the fire department equipment proposal was 5,291 yes and 1,900 voted no. But again, if you're interested in getting this printout or downloading a PDF, go to the grosseal.com under the clerk's office and under elections, and you'll see the election results for not just this election, but for August primary as well. And I think there's some historical archives as well. So with that said, that's it for the clerk's report tonight. Thank you very much.
Uda?
Yes.
Uda, did you wanna go over the trustees? You went over the,
I'm
you
sorry.
went over everybody but the trustees.
I just got moving. I saw some of your faces go blank, like, oh, here she talks some more. And I thought, let's keep this short. You're right. Thank you, Jim. Carl Bloetscher, 4,803 votes. Michael Jarecki, 4,957 votes. Joseph Porcerelli, 5,047 votes. And Jameson G. Yeager, 4,799 votes. And unresolved write-in, 211 votes. And if you, I did give the totals for the school board, did I not?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So with that said, that's the end of the clerk's report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Brian. The office continues to collect the 2020 summer tax bills, a late fee of 3% until the end of November, and it accumulates at 1% per month of delinquency up until the date of March 1st, 2021, when it goes to the county. The financial information will be available on my website. It currently isn't completely compiled. All of our investments can be viewed on my website. 2021 pet tags are still available until 12/31. 21, they're $6. After that date, they go up to $12. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Let's move on to the trustee liaison reports. We'll start, Mr. Budny.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. For the last time, we have a DPS meeting tomorrow. In case you missed any of the things that we said today, you can hear them again tomorrow at our meeting, 7 o'clock, Zoom, or actually we will have the commission will be meeting in the boardroom. No ZBA. I'm going to miss saying that. No ZBA meeting this month. And if you would, I'd ask the board's indulgence to bear with me for a few minutes. Not much has been said, but this is the last meeting of this board, the 2016 board. And a lot of people look at the board and they look at our discussions. They look at, various issues and, you have people on one side, people on the other, and you have people looking at us and agreeing or disagreeing with us. But one thing I don't think our residents think of enough, and I really would hope that they would, is that anybody that signs up for this board puts in time, takes away 4 years from their personal life to service the community. Regardless, we're not talking now what their decisions are. We're talking about them being up there and doing what they think is best, well, whether we agree with it or not. I know, I've been here 8 years as trustee, and I know the time that I put in. I know the time that the other board members put in. And if you think about it, we've got 10,000 plus people on this island, and we had 15 people apply for the board. This is not a great job. It's not something that people enjoy. It takes a lot of time. And the people that serve on this, they are putting forth for this community. And having said that, I would just like to say to each one of the gentlemen that are leaving this board, thank you for your 4 years, for these 4 years that we've been together. And if you bear with me here, I have some presentations that I wish I could make in public, but I have some plaques for each of you. For Jim Nelson, 4 years on the board, and he also served previously on the DPS commission. Jim, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Jim.
Tom Melvesto. Tom Melvesto's been on the board for my 8 years, and he was appointed to the board before that to finish out a trustee's position. Prior to that, he was on the DPS commission and has served this community well. Tom, thank you for your service. Ted Van Oss. You know, I know people.
Sorry, Jim, that was thank you. I was on mute.
Ted Van Oss. People I know a lot of people go, I don't have time to get on a commission. I don't have time to get on a board. And it does take a lot of time. And it is something that you truly as a resident need to appreciate what these people do. Ted Van Oss has been on the board for 12 years as your treasurer, but he has over 25 years of service on commissions and the board. That's a lot of time that he's taken away from his family and his personal life to serve you. And I would hope, whether you've agreed with his decisions or haven't agreed with his decisions or like his tax bills or not, that you appreciate the time he's put in for this community. So Ted, thank you for your service. And finally, Brian Loftus has served as our supervisor for 12 years. And I can say that I have seen Brian in here hour after hour after hour. I spend a lot of time at the Township Hall, and he spends more. It is a thankless job. And Brian, thank you for doing it for 12 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
For all 4 of you, I only wish you the best in in your future. Go and enjoy life, and you won't have to worry about this anymore. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
This would be an appropriate time. I'll just bring this up right now. Jim, this will soon be yours. It was presented to me during my first term by Duncan Murdoch, and he just said, don't hesitate to use it. Just use it wisely. I offer you the same advice and the same gavel. With that, thanks, I'll move on to Mr. Bloetscher's trustee liaison report. It's catchy. Mute. Unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I echo Jim's sentiments. I know that overwhelming $18,000 a year salary that you've had, we've talked about, I think works out to somewhere around 50 cents an hour. And if you want to upgrade and mow lawns, I'm in the market at some point, so let me know. But I share Jim's sentiments with everybody, all of the board members without exception, and it's been my privilege to work with you, all of you. And I very much appreciate that. I have the pleasure of sitting on 3 commissions. The first is Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission. My report with that consists of 3 things. Number 1, we continue to look for grants and other funding to expand the trail system, particularly between Grow Road, south along East River to the Gibraltar Bay Wildlife. That continues to be a priority, and we are looking for money for that. I'd also like to report, and I'm pleased to report, that the observation deck has been completely rebuilt. It is a wonderful time to go out and look at the fall colors. You can see Detroit to the north, Lake Erie to the south, and all of the islands in Canada to the east. And invite anyone and everyone to come and enjoy the view. It's been a long time coming. It's a good project, and it's finally over. And the third thing is that the bike path maintenance project is complete. We finished everything for this year. So we expect to have years of enjoyment and use with minimal maintenance going forward on major sections of the path. Second committee that I'm on is on Greenways open space. We do have a good report here with the Boy Scouts having participated in a cleanup this last Saturday, November 7th. The following summary was drafted by Patrick Quinlan, who is an assistant scout master. And he notes as follows: Grosdale Boy Scout Troop 1261 worked in conjunction with the Township, which provided a dumpster at the East River open space between Manchester and Rucker on November 7 from 9 a.m. until noon. Old tires, bricks, cement block, toy wagon, car, marine batteries, empty barrels, conduits, spark plug wires, fuel filters, old decking and lumber, bottles, cement pieces, automobile parts, and all other kinds of assorted small debris dumped over the course of many years, and apparently last dumped years ago, were picked up by the scouts and volunteers. A second location was also cleaned up at the open space near Manchester and Park Lane. The scouts were able to dig up the remnants of an old pickup truck, mostly the rear quarter of the truck, and carry it to the street where the Township will pick up and dispose of it. The following people were involved with it, and I take pleasure in reporting their names because they worked very hard. There was a lot of organization here. First and foremost, adult scout leaders. Patrick Quinlan led the project. Neil Quinlan, Eagle Scout. Mike Perricane, scout leader. Tony Dioso, Eric Heilman, and Brian McGran. All were adult scout leaders that were involved in managing, supervising, and making this possible. Following scouts participated: James Quinlan, Nino Dioso, Connor Perricane, Carl Pate, Griffin Wilcox, Joey Gall, Enzo Bonamon, Daniel and Girometta, Tony Girometta, Aiden Asher, Aaron Glass, Danny Heilman, Levi Gasper, and Diego Gasper. Adult volunteers consisted of Bill Stevenson, Matt Gasper, Chris Wilcox, Chairman Cliff St. Pierre of the Open Space Greenways Committee, and myself. I also want to thank and recognize that John Kime and manager Derek Thiel from the DPS were instrumental in providing services, placing the dumpster, ordering the dumpster, having it located. And John Kime was able to take and push a trail back into the woods for probably about 60 yards that made all of this easier and possible. And it wasn't level, it wasn't easy, but the Boy Scouts made it happen. And I just want to thank John and Derek and all of the scouts that I mentioned for a terrific day. The weather was superb. We filled a 30-yard dumpster with debris that was in the woods, simply making the open space in Grosdale a better place. The third commission that I sit on is the Grosdale Police Commission. Last month, officers drove a total of 16,674 miles. Officers had 82 animal calls. There were 13 alarms, 0 rescues, but 15 general assistance, totaling 548 with all 31 days. We had 96 911 calls that were responded to for a total of 975 calls. Last month, I am sad to report we had 2 more OWIs, 24 citations. Our officers issued 147 verbal warnings and posted 25 security notices. We're getting into that time of year where we have the deer season, the rutting season. And to date, for the month of October, we had 5 deer accidents versus 6 for the same time period last year. And with respect to animal control officer, Julie had 73 animals that were complained of. 3 dogs were picked up, 2 were returned to owners, and 1 was adopted. The same for cats. We had 3 that were picked up or surrendered, 1 that was returned to owner, and 2 that were adopted out. And I'm very pleased to report her efforts have yielded total donations year through October of $27,087.64. I would like to conclude my report by also noting that I have had, as I said earlier, the privilege of working with some very fine people on the Township Board. I want to thank Tom Malvesto for his attention to detail and his persuasive arguments and his fine analysis. Made a difference in some of my votes, Tom, and I thank you for that. Jim Nelson, you were always there with support, willingness to come down and meet in my office, eat my candy, and occasionally even discuss matters that involve the township. Jim, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your support. I also look at Ted Van Oss, and I consider Ted as being the conscience of the board. He's a person that repeatedly gave us good counsel, caused us to reflect and think about not just today, but where this is going with the decision down the road, how we're going to pay for it, where the money's going to come from. And I hope to always remember one of Ted's early comments when Jim and I started working on the policies and administrative rules for the township, and that was to assume that the people that have gone before you know more than you do. Changes shouldn't just be made because you feel like making a change. You need to go ahead and understand what the effects of that change will be. And then it made it very easy and I think insightful for both Jim and I to work with Dale Ream and spend numerous hours going through the policies and procedures. And I want to thank Dale and Jim for that, and for Ted for his insight. And lastly, Brian, I made comment earlier about 50 cents an hour. I think that might have been an understatement. I know how much you have worked. As Jim said, you come to the office and Brian is already there before you. Brian is working on the briefings for Wayne County. I went to meetings down in Wayne County where you were a tireless advocate on behalf of Groseal. I have asked you on several occasions to support me in special projects, such as finding out why we can't do the expansion of Bridge Road near the Riverview Marina. And you were able to come back with a solid answer from Wayne County saying that there was a lot of underground structures there and we could not use. I have followed your daily reports on COVID. I have followed your weekly reports on the county bridge and all of the work that goes on there. And Brian, I think we could probably spend a good portion of the rest of the night with all the work that you've put in, all the meetings that you attend, all of the community events that you have supported and advertised both with your heart, mind, and soul. And I join Jim Budny in thanking you for 12 years. And I thoroughly have enjoyed and thank each of the board members. Jim and Uta, I look forward to working with you going forward for the next 4 years, but there's some pretty big shoes that need to be filled. And I think the first one starts with you, Brian. You've been tireless in your commitment to the community. I wish you many long years of good service and retirement, and hope you and Ann and those grandchildren get to do a lot more boating. I thank you, sir. It's been a privilege working with everybody and a privilege getting to know you much better. And thank you again.
Thanks, Carl. Mr. Malvesto.
Oh. Am I good?
You're good.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. First off, I want to talk about the volunteer fire department.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Brian. There's not a rec report tonight from Kim, so I won't have to, you won't hear from her tonight, but everything is going just fine. I'm going to make this real short and real sweet. I would like to thank my colleagues on the board for 4 great years. I've enjoyed my time on the board the last 4 years immensely, and I really will miss it, but it's okay. I will ride off into the sunset, and I will be just fine. I also want to wish the new board members the best of everything in the future. There'll be peaks and valleys and this and that and yada, yada, but at the end of the day, they're good people, and we'll all survive. Thanks, Grozeal.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Township attorney has said he has no report for this evening, so I'll turn it over to the township manager, Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a few brief items. I want to remind everyone that Township Hall will be closed on Wednesday in honor of Veterans Day. And I want to give kudos, congratulations, and a thank you to Clerk O'Connor's staff, especially Brian Friel, Elena Farmer, and Gail Hager for well before the August primary. All the voter registrations have been up. They've worked tirelessly. And I also really appreciate all of the election workers and all the time and effort they put in. Especially that day. It's a long day. And simply put, to the outgoing board members, on behalf of the entire staff of the township, we'd like to say thank you for your service and all the support that you have given us in all the years that you've been here. And that concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ram.
Mr.
Hello.
Supervisor?
On to me, and I promised not to go as
Brian?
long as I did last time. I covered a lot of territory. But a couple of subjects, and I'll start out with the good news, reasonably good. Got the last report on the McLeod cleanup, the pollution reports we get about every month, and from my good friend Brian Kelly. But just the synopsis: demolition work under the county purchase agreement is complete. Work under the settlement agreement will be completed next spring when subsurfaces are filled with millings and a final report is submitted. Torch cutting of the slag remnants is underway. It's under Eagle's review, and that's the slag left over from the steel those days. There were what they refer to as skulls. There were 5 of them. 2.5 of them have been cut and removed. Each one of these things weighs 241,000 pounds, mostly iron, a few other elements in it. But the important thing is there is completion on much of the cleanup at McLeod. On the same subject, more or less, the air monitoring reports. Perimeter monitoring, no exceedances. Perimeter sampling, no exceedances. Real-time dust monitoring, again, no exceedances. So the cleanup is going well. We're seeing progress. We're seeing nothing there, which is what we want to see. Pretty much all the structure is gone. And again, as Brian Kelly stated, in the spring, they'll start milling or start filling some of the subsurface holes and patching that up. Not as good news on the Wayne County Bridge, and I wish I had better information. I wish I had any information on. I'll try to make this as easy as possible. On Friday, November 6th, Township was informed that an underwater inspection of the Grossfield Parkway Bridge piers had been performed the week of November 2nd, revealing additional deterioration since the previous inspection performed in June. We have not gotten a written report yet, and we're anticipating it soon. I did speak to some of the staff this afternoon, so we're expecting the written report. We'll get that information to you. Mr. Buddy will probably be giving it to you as soon as we get it. The June report, as you may be aware, recommended underwater repairs within 6 months. That had not been shared with the township, unfortunately. Not that we would be able to do much about it, but it'd be nice to know. At the bridge update meeting, we weren't advised. We were informed that the underwater pier work we put off for another 18 months. That makes it summer of 22, if they can get funding. Hopefully there's enough time to get funding lined up. It's not supposed to affect the opening of the structure of the bridge, or it should be open for vehicular traffic when, as expected, sometime this December. So still on track for the December opening. They're investigating, there's more investigation in the underwater piers, and you need to be advised that it's really some neat stuff. They prisms set up in each of the piers, and they do laser shots, and they have said there has been absolutely no movement of any of the piers. So while the bridge, as we know, due to time, there's deterioration, but it's not moving, and they hope to have it reopened in December. So that's the good news. Trish, do you have a DDA update? Or maybe I think she's chiming in. Trish usually has good news. I should let her go last, and you'll feel better about it.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Yeah, just a few things. I'll keep it short. First of all, this Thursday, we are having a public Zoom meeting to share for our consultants to share the DDA master plan. So that will be at 7 o'clock. And I just posted in the event the Zoom link, and I'll send out reminders on Thursday. So that's going on. This month's DDA meeting's been rescheduled just because of Thanksgiving. No one wanted to work on Thanksgiving this year. So we've moved it forward to next week. And then as of right now, Island Glow is a go, although it'll be a little bit different. Right now, we're talking about moving it down from Macomb Commons to Lions Park so that we can spread out more. And we'll make some changes just to keep it safe. Of course, unless something happens with the executive orders that we can't gather. But as of right now, it's a go. and we'll just make changes or adjustments as we need to. And I think that's about all I have. Yes, we did go ahead and cancel Ladies' Night. We just felt we could not safely have that event. Many of the store owners who are very popular destinations just were not comfortable for themselves or their employees. So they were declining to participate. So we did officially cancel it. We'll be looking to reschedule it in the spring. But we're looking at some other things we can do this holiday to help promote our local businesses and get the shoppers in there safely to help our businesses. But Ladies' Night is officially canceled.
Hopefully next year.
Yes.
No, I'm not going to recommend calling it a protest. That was the first time I brought it up. So, anything else?
That's all I have, unless there's something else you want me to cover.
No, that's the latest. Good. DDA running well. Thanks, Trish. Let's see. About time for me to wrap up. We've talked about boards we've dealt with, the people we've dealt with, and I've enjoyed everybody on these various boards I've had the privilege of working with. We got into discussions. We got sometimes heated discussions, and in retrospect, I mean, I was usually right, but I wasn't always as right as I thought I was going into it. So for those of you who had the patience to bear with me and share our expertise, I think we moved things along. In the 12 years, I think I've seen changes in the township. I think we've moved in the right direction. Voters have supported us. They've supported us with millages. They're willing to invest in this community. So I guess we've been doing things reasonably well. Who didn't get any credit tonight, though, is the staff. Again, as a board, our job is governance, but getting things done, making things work, that's management. That's the township staff. I gotta thank Dale. The dark days of when I took over in 2008, and I had absolutely an almost entirely new board. Clerk O'Connor was there to help shepherd me in, but absolutely no starting point. And when my primary didn't go the way I had planned, I made a pact with Jim. I'm going to make this transmission as seamless as possible. I want him to succeed. I want his board to succeed. You know, I still live here. My grandkids live here. It's important for all of us that this incoming board succeeds, but they'll succeed not so much with the Board of Trustees, but with the staff. And I could always count on Dale anytime I needed to contact him. The same with Ann Darsniak, Mike Duker, now Kim O'Farrell, always available and always there to help get things done. With Chief Warnick, Deputy Chief Harden, Lieutenant Pelham, we got a great command staff in the police, Russ and Kevin in the fire department. I think we're leaving things in pretty good shape. Again, Jim, I'm wishing you and your new board nothing but the best. Here to help. I'll try to get you every bit of information you need to hit the ground running. And then I'm just going to get out of your way.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for everything. I will hand deliver the gavel first. And again, wishing you all the best. Heck, with that, I'm going to enjoy retirement. I'm going to enjoy my paintings and all those things that I haven't gotten done around the house. I probably won't get them done anyway. So, I'll contract them out.
Mr. Supervisor, can I interrupt for one
moment? Yes,
ma'am. And I feel terrible to do this at the end of your report, but when Dale thanked the staff and the clerk staff, I felt like such an idiot because that was on the top of my list of things I wanted to do. And I tried to keep my report short, and I missed thanking the most important people that made this whole election run. And I'm hoping to make up for that a little bit. Grosse Ile Township is so fortunate. Can you imagine 2 full-time staff people and 1 part-time staff person? Our deputy clerk, Brian Friel, our election coordinator, Elena Farmer, and our part-time election associate, Gail Hager, did the heavy lifting on this election all the way back to March and April when the whole cycle really got started. And I could not be prouder to be associated with them. They work seamlessly together. They anticipate each other's moves. They've organized so many elections together, Brian in particular. Our election workers, our poll inspectors, some of them have been working these polls for 15 to 20 years. They were here when I started as clerk, and they're still out there, even in this time of COVID, putting on their masks, putting on their shields, their gloves, and I like to say they're hero suits, because they come in and they do, again, the heavy lifting of democracy. And we could not have done this without them. And they are the unsung heroes of democracy. And we all as a community owe them a huge wave of thanks. And I can't believe I didn't say that sooner, because Brian, I'm looking right at you. What you guys do makes what I do very easy. I can focus on township business, but I know, I trust, I've learned, and we've learned together. So again, thank you all. And thank you, Brian, for your service and for letting me make this last moment gesture to the people that really mean so much to the township.
Yep, it's the staff that gets things done. Our job in government was to give them the tools they needed to do the job we hired them to do, what the residents expect. So with that, I'll turn it over to public comment. With that, public comment, anything you want to talk about? Who's first?
Raise your hand. There we go. Mark Mills.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Mills.
Mr. Loftus, congratulations on your retirement for one. Just so I have basically a question. I just would like to have answered if I can before you actually leave office. This goes back to obviously my situation with the election and police investigation. Just based on the public apology that went out, some of the comments you made at the last two meetings, and a Facebook post just 2 days ago. I guess my question to you and Ms. O'Connor, and well, basically, is it the township's opinion that I actually committed a crime, regardless of what the Bureau of Elections, the ACLU, and the police investigation here that the police department put forward? I just want to know if it's a township position that I still actually committed a crime.
I have no opinion on it. Madam Clerk, do you have an opinion on it? Nope. We do not have an opinion on it.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian.
Okay, who's up next? Give a wave. Raise your hand. All right, Craig Pilkington. Make sure you unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're fine.
Okay. Oh, good evening, everybody. First of all, thanks to the four of you that are going to be leading the board. I think it's 36 years of cumulative service that you've provided, which is great. Please stay involved. You know, Brian, can I ask to be able to come back? I've actually got to open up the door for my daughter. Can I take a break and come back?
That's fine. That's
We'll add 30 seconds to his time, Brian.
Okay.
Go ahead, Craig.
It's a new world we live in.
Yeah.
Hey, you always feel better when you know your daughter's home safe.
Yeah, you know, something that's absolutely true. Please stay involved. I mean, you folks really do bring a tremendous amount of, you know, experience. And I hope that we continue to see you involved in township and in township business. Secondly, has anything been done relative to our soccer team? Did I miss anything? Because I was not in on this entire meeting.
The state champs?
Yes.
I don't know. I'll check. We'll have to check with the schools to see that, because they usually like to take the lead on these.
Well, I guess my suggestion would be that I don't think we did anything last year, or the township did anything. And, you know, this is a consecutive championship. And it would be a great thing because that is a very rare occasion or a rare achievement to maybe set aside a day in honor of our, you know, boys state championship soccer team, and maybe invite them to Island Bowl. That's just a thought. So I just thought I would throw that out there for consideration. And one third thing, and if I've still got a few seconds, Clerk O'Connor, who mentioned that we have 9,596, is that correct? 9,600 registered voters?
Yes.
I think that's about right. And I think our township population is 10,400.
That's a reasonable estimate. Craig, I looked at those same numbers myself. I find them a little bit just.
Yeah.
Especially in light.
800 to populate our schools. And if that's the case, we've got a bigger problem than what anybody thought.
Yeah.
So if somebody brought it up to me on the Civic Issues page, and if there was some way we could look at it and maybe requalify those numbers. But we do have challenges as far as the school population is concerned. You all know that. In maintaining a native population. And the situation with the bridge, please don't forget to communicate and get our schools involved with communication on the Trenton Channel Bridge. And thank you all again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Greg. Ryan, who's next?
Anybody else have any public comment? Raise your hand, turn your video.
It's okay. You can still slam me on Facebook. It's our
looks pretty quiet, Brian.
Can we make a motion to adjourn?
Wait, hold on. I got one. Judy. Go ahead, Judy. Make sure you unmute.
Sorry. Hi, good evening.
Hi, Judy.
I just wanted to say thank you for an amazing election. I know it was an overwhelming year in so many different ways. And I was watching closely the election results, and Groseal was right up there with the results, as you know, quicker than a lot of other places. So thank you for handling it well. Thank you for everything you all do. And to the ones who are leaving, I hope that everybody, it's easy, so easy to sit here and criticize. And it's a very complicated job that you all have, and a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different people to make happy. And you do a great job of it. I've only been here almost 5 years, and I'm very impressed. It's a great place to be. So thank you for what you've done. And if you miss me, you know, complaining to you, you can just watch on watch the other meetings. But thank you. What everybody said is very, very true. You guys do a great job. So thank you all.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
Ryan.
Okay, last chance. Anybody else have any public comments?
I see none.
Think we're good to go.
I think so. With that,
Motion to adjourn.
One last time, Mr. Budny.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Malvesto. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And we'll call this meeting adjourned at 9:50. Once again, thank you one and all. It has been a privilege to serve. It has been.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An honor and a privilege to work with all of you.
It's over. Now you can say anything you want.